Last time I talked about where I thought the Vancouver real estate market was headed after the ultra low mortgage rates are all renewed. And a few people in the comments basically said,
"Cool story, bro. Got any data?"
One of our viewers, at Nick's dad, sent us a comment about not having enough data to back up our claims. Which honestly, fair. Apparently being in the business of talking to buyers and sellers over every day for almost 20 years is no longer enough. We've entered the era of show me the money.
Show me the money.
But unlike Jerry Maguire, you don't have to bribe me with a cute four-eyed kid to straighten me out. Today, I'm bringing up the file cabinet. We're going to go over inventory trends, seller fatigue, why the stress test may have saved the market, and what could happen once this higher rate cycle finally burns out. And sorry to burst your bubble, no pun intended, this is not one of those the market will collapse tomorrow videos, because YouTube already has enough thumbnails with flaming condos and economists making this face. Hi, my name is Simon Liu and I am your friend in real estate here in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. I have helped people make smart real estate moves across Greater Vancouver for nearly 2 decades. If you're thinking about making a move, my team and I would love to help. I invite you to send a message with the information below. Let us help you find your happy home. If you've been trying to understand what's happening in the Vancouver real estate market, it probably seems confusing. One headline may say, detached market is picking up, and another says prices could soften. Then some guy named Greg on X posts a comment about some other guy's post about a graph with 17 arrows, and suddenly everybody becomes a macroeconomist for 6 hours before they go back to arguing about the Canucks. But when you zoom out, the market actually becomes pretty understandable. This isn't a panic market, it's a fatigue market, and the data is starting to show it. Are you ready? Let's go. One of the biggest stories over the last few years has been the surge in inventory. For the first time in years, buyers finally had options again and a little bit of leverage. Back in January of this year, Greater Vancouver hit roughly 12 months of inventory, which is firmly in buyer market territory. For years, buying a home in Vancouver had the same energy as that guy who put off buying the turkey until Christmas Eve. Bold move. Turns out so did everybody else. But now, things have settled down. Since matching the all-time highs in January, things have come back down to the averages of the last 3 years. Active listings are in the 14,000 to 16,000 range this spring, while sales stayed below long-term seasonal averages. That gave buyers more leverage, more negotiating power, and most importantly, time to think. But here's the interesting part. Inventory is still elevated, yet the pace of inventory growth is starting to slow. After seeing its peak in June of 2025 at almost 18,000 units for sale, this last month in April, we recorded a total inventory of 15,776 versus April 2025, which was 16,325. That's important because it suggests something subtle is changing. Seller sentiment is starting to shift. Not every seller wants to keep playing this game. And what home buyers need to know is that if sellers are not pressured by the mortgage rates right by now, they likely don't have any other pressure to make them sell. And in a second, I'll show you why seller fatigue might actually be the saving grace for Vancouver home values and why that's bad news for those of you still sitting on the sidelines waiting for that crash. Some home sellers are choosing not to list their homes unless they absolutely have to, because they don't want to take the perceived loss compared to peak pandemic prices. Other sellers are taking their homes off the market because it is just tiring to hear the same feedback after every showing. I like the home, but I have to sell my place first. Well, I do like it, and it checks all the boxes, but this is the first one I saw, and I have 50 more to see. This is causing what we in the industry call seller fatigue. This is something you might not notice in the stats. We can't just look at canceled listings, because then we'd have to track how many of those homes are put back on our market right away. We don't track this in Canada, but in the US, there's a metric they use called delisting. And on Realtor.com, this is what was reported on December 11th, 2025. Basically, instead of meeting the buyer's demands, sellers are choosing not to sell. And make no mistake, it's happening right here in our own backyard as well. You feel it first. Listings sit longer. Price reductions become more frequent. Homes are getting canceled and relisted again. Do this dance a couple of times and you will be tired of it too. Just last week, I had a client stand pat in negotiations after they started to feel like the buyer was pushing too far. They said they would rather sell to someone else. Another client told me a couple of months ago, if it doesn't sell for the price that they want, then I'll just wait for a better market. I have a place to live, I'm still comfortable, I don't really have to sell right now. However, a property that's properly priced is still getting attention. And an overpriced home now gets favorited by buyers who never book a showing, which is basically the real estate version of getting left on red. This next part was what was supposed to take the whole market down. It didn't, and I'm going to tell you why. Now let's talk about mortgage renewals, because this was supposed to be the apocalypse according to some naysayers on Reddit. The confidence of these posts. You'd think they'd either had a crystal ball or they came back from the future to warn us. I remember reading those posts in those forums that are full of people predicting that when the pandemic mortgages renew, everybody is going to be forced to sell. Has that happened? Not really. Has it been painful for many households? Absolutely. Has there been a mass collapse? Not so far. And a huge reason for this is the mortgage stress test. People qualified at rates much higher than they originally received. So even if someone had borrowed at 1.8%, many of them already had to prove that they could handle the payments at a stress test rate of 5.25%. That buffer mattered a lot. It doesn't mean renewals are easy. Some homeowners are seeing payment jumps that are genuinely uncomfortable. But instead of immediate forced selling, most people just adapted. They extended amortizations, they cut spending, they refinanced, rented out their basement suites, they delayed moving, and it's working. The national rate of mortgages in arrears is 0.28%. This ranks as one of the lowest among the world's advanced economies. What this means is that mortgage payments are not the reason why people are choosing to sell their homes. And this supports the rationale that sellers do not have to sell their homes. But in most cases, buyers still have to buy. If you're renting, you're paying 100% interest each month. And if you're sick of doing that, you're going to have to buy. If you're getting married and you need to have your own home, you will eventually have to buy. If you sold your home already, well, guess what? You have to buy. Or if you're 40 years old and living in your parents' basement, you probably have to buy. Unless your mom does all your laundries and cook all your meals, then I guess it's pretty enticing to stay. But here's the part almost nobody is talking about. What happens when this adjustment phase ends and pent-up demand comes back all at once? Because people don't stay emotionally exhausted forever, eventually they adapt to the new normal. Stick around, because it's not going to be pretty if you're not ready for it. One thing I keep noticing in the data is that the demand never really disappeared. It just became extremely rate sensitive. When buyers feel uncertainty, they pause. When rates stabilize, even slightly, activity starts picking back up. We've already seen periods this year where sales activity improved month over month while inventory growth started moderating. That doesn't mean we're suddenly going back to 2021 insanity, but it does suggest that the market may be trying to stabilize rather than implode. Over the last 3 years, over any rolling 12-month period, we have seen home sales hover between 23,000 to 26,000 sales. What it means is that this is the baseline. What about people like you who are sitting there waiting for the crash that might not come? Are you ready to bid when the bidding starts? Because that's what's going to happen when the market switches. And I've seen this same pattern develop numerous times over the last 20 years. And when the market switches, remember this: prices always go up faster than when they come down. And once prices go up, you are not catching up. Unless you finally win that Lotto Max with those same numbers you used from the fortune cookie you got 15 years ago at Mr. Hose, which by the way also said, the foundation of your future lies in brick and mortar. Trust the process and inspect that roof. What we are going to talk about next is the reason why I genuinely believe that the next upcycle could be one for the ages. If you're waiting for the perfect entry point, you're going to want to hear this. However, as long as rates remain at its current levels, buyers stay cautious, sellers have more competition, inventory stays healthier, price growth likely stays flat. But what happens once rates are stabilized and households fully adapt? The conversation changes, because Vancouver still has long-term housing supply constraints. Housing starts have been at their lowest levels recorded over the last 5 years, and trending down as shown on this chart. The shift has been towards multifamily homes and purpose-built rentals. What this means for you is that there will be less new homes coming to market for sale in the next 5 years. And I have said numerous times before, when the market rebounds, and it will, consumer confidence returns, and it will, demand can come back surprisingly fast, and this lack of new supply has the potential to cause a bull market like we've never seen before. This phase is less about collapse and more about recalibration. For you, that means finding that spot that you are happy with. And waiting for a crash is likely a low probability outcome to bank on. So, apparently I needed receipts. Fair enough. But the data supports what many are seeing in real time. Inventory rose, buyers gained leverage, sellers became fatigued. Higher rates hurt affordability. The stress test prevented the worst case scenario. Households adapted better than expected. The market isn't booming, but it also isn't in a free fall. Right now, it looks like a market catching its breath after one of the strangest cycles we've ever seen. What do you think happens when the last wave of higher rate renewals passes? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to map out your plan to home ownership, I invite you to send an email to info@happyhomesvancouver.com or a text message to 778-688-6838 and let us help you get settled into your happy home. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel and share with a friend. In the meantime, check out our last video where we introduced you to one of the most interesting suburbs in Vancouver, right here on this channel. We'll have a link for you in the show notes. Again, my name is Simon Liu, here to serve you here in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.